And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider, talking some Michigan football recruiting as the summer period is about to come to a close. Page gets turned, getting ready to for fall camp, but the fireworks aren't necessarily over. You probably still got some sparklers left, Bryce Marriage, that could sparkle in Michigan's direction as the Wolverines, considering the transition, considering the adaptive nature of what they were going to have to do recruiting wise in terms of having a national recruiting scope. These dudes have done a fantastic job. Not saying that just because it's Michigan, because hey, there are some guys that I think they should go on that they haven't really gone hard on. We'll talk about that today too, right? So it's not like everything they do is like, oh, it's the greatest. But they have done a fantastic job of sliding into a much bigger recruiting pool and really holding their own, with still some room to go and land some other big fish. So we'll get into that. But joining me, as he typically does, doing his thing over on the MichiganInsider.com, my guy, Bryce Marriage. Bryce, how you doing?
I am good. How are you doing, Sam?
Man, fantastic. You're getting a lot in line for the fall. A lot moved around. Got the studio redone, new backdrop, getting some new displays for the fall campaign. So new regime, right? You got to redo everything. Getting the behind the uniform cast together. Got some great commits. We got just to give you a little preview, we got both the Andrews, Andrew Marsh and Andrew Babalola, committed. Talking to Blake Frazier, I'll be basically getting that one locked in. Like, we're going to have a really good cast for Behind the Uniform this year. Be bringing that to you over on the MichiganInsider.com. So be sure to check it out. But we got to talk recruiting. Fantastic month of June. If you just look at it from the standpoint, listen, I know they didn't get everyone they wanted, but if you look at it from the standpoint, Bryce, of where they got guys, like from all over the country, from out west to down south to Mississippi, where, I mean, they got two guys from Mississippi in this class, to out east to up in Ohio. And this is where we will start. To up in Ohio for a guy that Ohio State wanted, still wants. A guy that they tried to convince him not to even visit Michigan. And I know, based on the interview, and he told us he almost committed to to Ohio State on his visit. I know that had you thinking, like, oh, I don't know if Michigan can pull this one off. And they pulled it off with Montana Torbert. Suki. They got Suki done. And that, to me, as far as impressive land so far, given the circumstances, given his ranking, given the competition, that might be the most impressive pull so far.
Oh, yeah. For me personally, that is the biggest get they've gone. And I'm not saying he's the highest ranked prospect, if you look at the 24/7 Sports rankings, but I think he's 102 for us and maybe 104 in the composite. So he's basically a borderline top 100 prospect we're talking here. And a guy that's listed about 5'10" and a half and some change, 175. I think he might be a little taller than that. I mean, he's hovering around that range. But if you watch his highlights, which we have up by our great producer Lance, this is a guy that's just a pure athlete. I mean, he can play quarterback. He plays quarterback for his high school. He led them to 11-1 year as the quarterback. But on top of that, he plays safety. So he's a two-way guy. Honestly, I think most schools have projected him to play in the secondary. And I think the thing with him that's most intriguing, Sam, is he is not, a one-trick pony. This is a guy that you could put at nickel, you could put at safety, you could put at corner, you could put at so many spots. He runs, I want to say, a 10-2 100. I mean, it's pretty fast. He runs.
They
I
been
gotta
too.
remember if it's a
Hold
10
on, let
2
me
8.
go to the interview, which I still got to put. Thank Dusty May for us not being able to get to the. I mean, he just blew up our entire schedule. I'm still gonna, I'll take out the parts where he talked about, his recruitment. We don't need to hear all the.
Right. But I think the biggest thing is when he did stop by after his visit to our studio. I mean, he was very frank, and
Yeah.
he said not all his family was, in support of him making this trip, let alone probably committing. So for Michigan to go in Ohio for a guy that they super wanted, that speaks volumes. And there's a lot of people you got to give credit for here. I think first off,
JG.
Guilford. Yeah. He's right now Michigan's top ranked recruiter on the staff. Gennaro Guilford. He's done a fabulous job, not even with just Torbert, but just in the class in general, landing a guy like Darius Johnson all the way in California. And he's helped with Blake Jenkins down in Texas. So he's a guy that, you saw a coach from BYU and you're like, what kind of reach, what kind of recruiting prowess is he really going to have once he gets up to Michigan, right? Because I think that was one of the main questions we have with not even just him, but all the coaches. And this is just my opinion for right now, out of the new coaches, has shown the best ability to not only land guys, but land guys from everywhere and land the very best, because these are guys that, he's not moving down the board for kind of, we missed. They're landing the top guys.
All right, so Suk.
So what's the official time?
They were calling him Suk on the visit. Suki, right? He doesn't visit. Gennaro Guilford is the reason he even visits. To be very blunt and clear. He said he came close to committing Ohio State on a visit, but it was his connection with JG, his belief in Gennaro Guilford's ability to develop him. He talked about that a lot. And again, we're still going to put this up. We just been heard it. He just raved about the developmental skills. And he said, man, I think that he might be the best developer in the now. Again, he's done a lot of evals. He said Gennaro Guilford's a national guy. Right. And on the strength of that, he wanted to come over and see Michigan before he made the call to Ohio State, because as you laid out, family, he said, everybody in my family, except for my mom, who's not really, it doesn't really count because she's not really a football, a college football fan. So, but everybody else in my family is Ohio State.
Right.
Period. So cut Bryce some slack for saying, hey, I've this.
You know what? Wait, hold on. You know what? I'd rather be wrong and then the kid comes than have it be the opposite, right? So I'm fine with that. I have no beef. Here's the bottom line too. Here's the bottom line too. He was very frank on top of he was always going to take this visit. As much as Ohio State did not want him to take this visit, he said that was never in question in his eyes of not taking it. And this was obviously now that he committed, but he was frank with us in saying this was not even a courtesy visit. This was a visit he wanted to personally take for several reasons. One, the relationship with Guilford. Two, I think Kerry Combs has done a fantastic job with kind of making that pipeline down to the Cincinnati area, which, mind you, you hear Michigan and Ohio and you're like, has Michigan really done well down there? Well, if you really think about it, Cincinnati, out of all places, is probably the spot they've done the best. I mean, they've landed Jordan Marshall, who was Mr. Ohio, Ron Moore. These are some top guys that, I don't know about Rod, but Ohio State wanted Jordan Marshall. Make no mistakes about it. They wanted Jordan Marshall, and they still want Torbert. But the difference is right now, I think, is those relationships, the depth chart. Michigan's been also very honest with, you're a guy, we can see you making an impact there. And I think the third thing is how they see him getting on the field. What stood out to me, Sam, and I don't know if you knew this going into the visit or not, and I actually didn't, was Michigan has pitched to him the opportunity to play multiple spots on this team. So that's not even just in the secondary we're talking about. We're talking about special teams. We're talking about returning kicks, punt returns. And it's funny, and I'm curious what your reaction to this is going to be. But when he said that, and I watched his film, and I looked at his measurables, and I've looked at just how he plays, a guy that he reminds me of, and I'm not saying he's going to be him, I'm not saying he is him, but just in measurables and in terms of his game and how he plays, is very much like Tyrann Mathieu from LSU.
Yeah.
That is the first guy that came to my head.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting point that you make about the honey badger, right? So my question about Suk when he came in was, how big is he really? Because I had seen like he's really like 5'9". He's really 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's listed bigger than his height. And so why do I say that? Because you watch his film, which we've had up, and you look at his track times. This dude is like he's inside the top 100 if his listed height is accurate. If he's the only way you would push him down is if he's 5'9", because he does have that positional versatility. You know, I was sort of comparing him to Smith Snowden as far as Michigan is concerned.
Yeah,
which makes sense. But you know, his freakish athleticism, I think, and this is, you know, Smith is another one we're talking to about behind the uniform, so I'm not trying to hurt my chances with that, right? But this dude's athleticism. So Suk's fastest 100-meter time is 10.41.
Okay.
10.41 that's this past year. So imagine what he'll be as a senior. His fastest 200-meter time is 20.9. Do you know how fast that is? Like, guys that we consider fast are running in the 21s. The fastest 200-meter time that I generally have talked about as it relates to Michigan recruits, he went to Michigan State, was Charles Rogers, who ran a 20.6. When Charles Rogers and Kelly Baraka squared off in the state playoffs, RIP to Charles Rogers, Kelly Baraka ran like a 21.3 and lost. And Kelly was fast, right? Mm-hmm. I think he beat Charles in the 100-meter and lost to him in the 200-meter. But Charles Rogers ran a 20.6. 20.6. This dude ran a 20.9 last year and a 10 for 100-meter. Like, he is fast. Like, legit fast, freaky fast.
Speeding ticket. Give him a speeding ticket.
Right. And but loosen the hips. Like, you see some track guys, they don't have that fluidity. Like, they can change direction and get up to speed quick and that kind of thing. They kind of lose when they're flipping the hips. That's not Suk. So he can play safety and corner and nickel and do those things. But I kind of see him as a corner. But when he came in, look, Bryce, he's 5'11". Like, this dude he is a top 100 guy, hands down. To me,
I mean, I'm with you. This is, I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon, but I feel like a lot of these rankings this cycle have been way off for us. And I'm not saying that's always the case. And some I think are maybe even ranked higher than what I think they should be too. So it goes both ways. But this is a guy that easily should be in the top 100. I mean,
yeah, man. And so
you look at his offer list too. It's not like he's got the offer list to back it up. He was originally committed to Indiana, which, a lot of people probably a couple seasons ago would have scoffed at. But for, him to be committed to Indiana, reopen, and then Ohio State say, wait a minute. We're not going to let this guy leave the state for Indiana. And right. And then you're the team that gets him instead of Ohio State. I mean, job well done for them. And I got, one more credit I got to give to.
I know where you go with this.
Is a former, it's going to be a future teammate for him, is Blake Jenkins, cornerback. He stopped by the studio afterwards, and he was very adamant that he was going to get Suki. And he was right.
He was right. He got him.
You got him.
Got him. I got to give him credit, man. He said, I'm the best recruiter Michigan's got. Period. Better than the coaches. I get it done. I'm going to get Suk. Now, he said he was going to get Josh Dobson, too, but we'll give him 1 for 2. We'll give you 1 for 2.
That's not bad. He's batting 500. He can
Right.
put Tigers right now.
Right. So that, I mean, but this to me is more impressive because you're getting a guy from Ohio that Ohio State wanted, and which sort of sets the stage for, I'm not saying that Suki is wavering at all. I'm not saying that, but you got to protect all your recruits, right? And so you're really gonna have to guard your yard with this dude. Hey, you think they're gonna give up on him? As talented as he is physically, shoot, stop it, bro. like this one is gonna be one that JG is gonna have to talk to all the time, which is no big deal. Like Gennaro Guilford, Tyler Stockton, like these dudes have come. We can even get into Alex Whittingham going down and getting for Derek Ford. I mean, that was a huge land to be able to go down to Mississippi and get a guy. That's why I keep talking about, listen, have there been some guys that they thought they were going to get that went elsewhere, or the 5-star or the in-state guys, which we will get to? Of course. I mean, everything hasn't gone, ace.
But that's not a this staff issue. That's an every cycle. You're gonna miss more than you're gonna hit. That's recruiting.
Right. And you got to transition. I mean, there were gonna be some bumps in the road anyway. I think that these guys have gotten over many of them better and faster than I think could have reasonably been expected. So job well done for their ability to have a national scope to recruiting and do as well as they've done. But then in the footprint, they've done well in Ohio. Mm-hmm. They're doing well. They're doing. It's not over in Michigan. They've gotten some good pieces in Michigan, and who knows where things could go down the line. We'll talk about that. But then to go in Ohio and to stake your claim, and I guess we got to shout out Kerry Combs too. Look, man, you don't go into Cincinnati, and get good with a guy, and Kerry Combs is on your staff, and you don't have, and he has nothing to do with it. Of course he does. Like, he's Mr. Cincinnati, right? So, no.
Another guy that probably also helped, and I know for a fact, was Sam. Do you know when Suki was in town for? Which was what, Victor's weekend. Mm-hmm. Do you know what else was going on that weekend?
What else was going on Victor's weekend? What else was going on?
Wasn't there a little takeover? A little mock takeover?
Oh, yeah, there was a mock takeover. Yeah, Charles. I got video of that. I got video.
When he was at his when he made his commitment, did you see he put on a Michigan
number 2? I saw that.
What was that last name in the back?
Charles never. The difference is Charles wasn't a Michigan fan, and if I remember correctly, and Charles, I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't have Michigan. He grew up a Michigan fan. He didn't have Ohio State fans in the family, right? So,
but I mean, that's not a bad selling pitch when you're hearing Charles Woodson, an Ohio guy, mind you, talk to another Ohio guy and say, "Listen, it worked out when I left the state."
Well, someone made the point. This is another point. There was a generation, your generation, Bryce, who grew up not knowing what it was like to see Michigan beat Ohio State for the most part. That wasn't Charles's youth. He saw Michigan beat Ohio State a lot, very often. So it wasn't a lot to buck that trend. Well, Suk is growing up in an era where, hey, guess what? Michigan has been getting it done against Ohio State. They got it done last year, but that's been the exception to the recent rule. And if you talk about getting developed, I know this is a new staff, but I mean, listen, the guys at Ohio State, they were Lamborghinis when they got there. Like, you got to work hard to mess up a Lamborghini. Like, this is Ryan Day we're talking about. I mean, they went out and bought the best team known to man after Michigan won a national championship and still lost 2 games. So that ought to tell you, yeah, I'm getting developed there. The dudes are what they are when they get to Ohio State. They're already ballers. You think they developed Jeremiah Smith? Jeremiah Smith was a dog when he got there. He's going to be a dog when he leaves. Stop it. So So if you want to get developed, who are you choosing? When you look at guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and come on, bro. This is
Yeah.
idiot.
No, this is bottom line, big win. And a big thing that I've gotten feedback from after the commitment was, well, Michigan's only got one top 100 player right now, according to 24/7, which is Jakari Lipsey. I will put this on record. If Michigan doesn't have at least 3 players at this end of the cycle that are in the top 100, I'll shave the beard.
You talked to your wife about that?
I'm confident in the staff. I'm confident in general.
Silky's gonna be top 100, man. Like,
there you go.
Just come on now.
There you go.
And the only question you could have about him was his height, and his height checks out. So I don't. That would be a travesty if he's not a top 100 guy.
Bottom line, I'm confident they're gonna have top talent in this class. They're gonna have it. I'm not worried.
So they've covered a lot of ground. What's left this summer, which takes us to a guy named Lincoln McGayle out of Oceanside, California, Bryce. And this is a dude that I know, I think you guys might have covered him in the last episode, but
we highlighted him. Yep.
Listen, you can tell by the amount of attention, the amount of emphasis they put on a guy, how much they like a guy.
Mm-hmm.
You can also tell by what happens at the position elsewhere. And all I can tell you is, Bryce, and tell me if you noted the same thing. So Lincoln McGayle visited, what was it? It was early June. It was early June.
June 5th.
So after Lincoln McGayle visits, Ty Kennedy, and he wasn't the only one, but he's the one that jumps out to me. Ty Kennedy, who's the son of Lincoln Kennedy, who has since committed to Washington. Ty Kennedy's visit was canceled. We aren't giving away any trade secrets because he told you that, right, Bryce?
Yep.
Ty Kennedy's visit was canceled like very quickly after that. I'm like, that can't be coincidence, because Ty Kennedy is a really good player, in my opinion. But it told me they must be feeling pretty good about A, how good Lincoln McGayle is, and then B, where they sit with him. And as we go into his announcement, which is slated to take place Saturday, 24/7 Sports will be in attendance at his announcement. Our Blair Angulo will be there. It's tentatively scheduled for 7:00 Eastern, but it's gonna take place at a festival, and it's called the festival that he's gonna be announcing at is called and let me get this right.
There,
I think it's called the Samoan Cultural Festival. Yes, the Samoan Cultural Celebration. There you go. And so he's going to be making his announcement there. And, depending on the timing, Bryce, I mean, they could get done with something early and it could go on at 6, or it could get pushed later and it could go on at 7:30 our time. So I would say Michigan fans to start paying attention around 6:00 Eastern. Just to be ready in case things move around. But this is a dude, Bryce, and I want your thoughts. I know we say this a lot, but man, I just think we are with how good this guy is as far as the rankings are concerned, in my opinion. And you could just, even if you didn't take our word for it, take how hard Jim Harding has pushed for him, and he is renowned as maybe the best offensive line coach in the country.
That's what I was going to say. It's not even my opinion I would fall on. It's Jim Harding, who just produced 2 first-round picks last draft. I mean, Jim Harding actually offered him, Sam, back in January. So this is a guy that they've targeted basically the moment they step foot on campus. He's been very open and frank with us, Lincoln, talking about Michigan, of how a big piece for him, as much as Utah has shown an extremely huge push. Washington, the other finalists, Michigan is making a push, but their pitch is look at the development and look at what you're coming into and where you could go next level, right? As much as there's different types of pushes, the next level pitch is, in my opinion, the best pitch. And Jim Harding, out of all the coaches probably on staff, has probably the best track record as of today. You could probably obviously throw Tony Alford up there, maybe a couple others, but Jim Harding knows what a great offensive lineman looks like. And for him to basically say, hey, this kid, we need him now, and making him that big of a priority, that speaks volumes. And you watch his film, he's 6'4", 290 pounds. He plays a lot of tackle for his high school, but that's kind of normal. You see a lot of the best offensive linemen for their high school team always play tackle because that's just normally what they do. But he's for sure going to be interior. And if you look at some of what they could possibly have interior wise, if he does pick Michigan, him and I don't want to call him Little Esposito because he's not little anymore, but those two in the interior, I mean, that would be a pretty impressive haul. So I got a prediction in right now for him to land at Michigan. I still feel pretty confident there. I think Michigan feels as well. I know Utah is not giving up. Washington is not giving up. I would say Utah, though, is probably the school pushing the hardest to maybe change his mind. But in the end, I think the development, the comfortability when he took that official visit to Michigan and how they made him feel at home, and just overall knowing the coaching staff, because this was a coaching staff that recruited him at Utah. So this is not like the transition hurt him. This is actually prior recruitment that they're not going to land this kid if it isn't for, obviously the transition to the new staff. So
yeah. So the interesting thing here, I don't know if you paid attention to Big 12 Media Days at all, but Morgan Scaley, the coach at Utah, was alluding to them losing an in-state quarterback. He had to be talking about he had to be talking about Michigan, right? Had to be talking about Michigan. So I mentioned that to say they're feeling a certain kind of way about, man, we got to do what we got to do. That was an in-state guy, of course. We got to do what we got to do to beat Michigan for guys. So they are pulling out all the stops for Lincoln McGale. Right. What this reminds me of, and now he's not, you got to get the comparison that I'm making. He's not Yax at this point, but when Yax was going through the process, he didn't go to the highest bidder. He had a good offer. Michigan had really good money on the table, but it wasn't his max offer. All right, but he said, man, I'm gonna go to Michigan and get developed for the pros. So I can make really good bread. It might not be the top, but it's comparable. And then what I make in the long game as a pro, because I get developed better here, is no more to make up for whatever I don't get in the short term. I think Lincoln McGale is looking at it the same way, because all Utah can do, I mean, they can't sell O-line development. They can't. Why can't they? Because their O-line developer is gone. So all they can do is giving bank, like just break him off to a point where it's just so much money you think he can't turn it down. Whereas Michigan can put a really, really good offer on the table, maybe not the top, but also give you the, hey, we're going to develop the crap out of you more so than any other school on your list, and that'd be enough to bring it home. And that's how I think this is trending, Bryce.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I just think this is one that also just the long game, right? This is not like Michigan again entered the mix last week, right? Compared to Ford, which again you brought up that one up earlier. That one was again very impressive. But with McGale, yeah, he's a guy they've always wanted, bottom line, and he fits the bill of what Michigan's new offensive line is going to look under Jim Harding. A very tough, physical, nasty, but at the same time, too, Sam, athletic. And this is a guy that, as big and physical as he is, he can still make that pull around the corner and knock someone's guys, someone's head off. So overall, yeah, this Blair, is definitely one to watch.
Blair is really high on him, and he said, listen, I don't have anything to do with the rankings, but let me explain to you the ranking. He said, the reason why our rankings guys haven't really vaulted him up is because he hasn't really competed outside of his area. He doesn't do all the camps and all that kind of stuff. So he hasn't really been pitted against some of the international competitions that caliber competition. So if you could say maybe that would be the question. But he said, listen, he said, I look at this kid's athleticism. He said, Sam, I mean, the kid, you know, he only has a six-pack because linemen aren't supposed to have six. He doesn't have a six-pack because linemen aren't supposed to have them. So he has to have more weight on him. He said the dude is a really, really good athlete, like a really good athlete. And anything that he doesn't have competitively right now, he'll pick up because his athleticism is just that good. So I lean on Jim Harding. And you got the best offensive line coach in the country saying you're a dude, you're a freaking dude. And that's where we are with Lincoln McGale.
Yeah. And one other thing with him too is talking about he's got a younger brother down the line. And this is kind of far, but 2030, Landon, and he's 6'2", 210 pounds, and he looks like he's gonna be a dude down the line. So it wouldn't hurt to, kind of have an Amazing Blue guy in the family.
Someone just said, why 3-star by 24/7? I just told you why. I just explained. I have anything to do with the rankings.
Run back the tape.
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with the rankings. And
yeah, we don't. Trust me, we don't. But we can give our own say. Yeah. And I think Sam and me are very much in, agreement that this is a 4-star caliber player.
100%. 100%. So we think he'll be next. And so, assuming that that's the case for the sake of argument, Bryce, question that a lot of fans have, okay, so where do they go from there? What are the remaining needs?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the top guys on the board? So what do you see at those positions that you think are the biggest needs? So what would you say are those spots, assuming they get Lincoln McGale?
Yeah, so first one that comes to my head is wide receiver. They got probably one of my favorite prospects in the class with Quinn Burrell. He's top 247 prospect. I think he's a guy that should be closer to top 100 personally, but extremely good, talented from Chicago. Mount Carmel, he, obviously his sister went to Michigan, so he was familiar, but that's a position they have had a few misses on. Probably most notable, Dakota Grant. He's committed to Oregon. You saw Trey Brin, who I've been a huge fan of him. He committed to Missouri. And then Damani Warren, he took that Victor's Weekend official visit, really had a good time, came up with his high school teammate and Thaddeus Thatcher, his quarterback. Both went elsewhere. He went to Texas A&M while Thatcher went to Oregon State. So I think the next step is, where's Michigan going to turn? Are they going to just keep going after guys that are committed? Are they going to look for new names? Are they going to look for senior evals? What's going to be their approach at the wideout position? I think, first off, it's very much safe to say they're going to keep recruiting Dakota Grant. That's not stopping. As for others, I don't know if it's as certain like Dakota is, but a name that I know, Sam, you're going to highlight a lot more coming up, and that is, we talk about in-state recruiting, is Chad Willis, a guy that's with, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, 6'3", over 200 pounds, big physical wideout. He's improved his speed, which has been a big thing for him. I think the other biggest thing with him is consistency, because I saw him a couple years ago for a game at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and I mean, he was probably one of the best players, maybe the best player on the field. And I was like, oh my God, this kid is a sophomore, and he looks like he's gonna be the next big thing out of Michigan. His rankings have kind of been varying, here and there. He committed to Cincinnati. He recently just flipped to North Carolina, and Michigan has been monitoring him, keeping tabs on him, and kind of, I think the next step for Michigan in terms of his recruitment is tracking his senior year and how that goes. But the more you do that, the harder it's going to get if you decide to flip him.
Well, I think it's already harder than it was if they had of So they did offer. All right. So they did come on him after the Cincinnati deal, but I think North Carolina was on him. Well, obviously they were on him harder. But we got to get a chronology of events. So you mentioned Damani Warren, who I know they were farther down the aisle with, right? So Thaddeus Thatcher and Damani Warren were thought to be a package deal. High school teammates are going to go to the same place. Well, Jamarcus Shepard is the coach at Oregon State, who is really, really tight with Thaddeus Thatcher. And you go to Oregon State to be the guy. I don't know if anyone else is telling Thaddeus Thatcher that, but they're telling him that at Oregon State, and it makes sense at Oregon State, right? But Damani Warren is not going to go to Oregon State. So once Thaddeus Thatcher comes off the board at a place that Damani Warren is not going to go to, the package deal stuff is off, right? And now the race for him becomes an arms race. And Texas A&M, man, you know how they get down, right? You know how they get down. So it brings me back to Chad. I'm one, just my personal opinion. Like, if it's even remotely close, I'm gonna bet on the in-state guy. Because you just got an easier time trying to keep a guy home. Now, more proven, more polished, that's Damani Warren. All right. And things were looking good. But man, I think if they had personal opinion, I think if they had pushed for Chad, they would have been in to get him. Right. It's not necessarily over. And why am I so high on Chad? The question about Chad, and I don't know if we talked about this here, I may have talked about it in one of the 3R reports. The question about Chad it's always been, can he run? Is he going to be because he was projected by a lot of people to be a tight end. Right. And so, you thought maybe he was a 4.8 guy, 4.9 guy. Well, Chad goes out in track season and runs a 10,900 meter. And it's like, well, wait, and his body's different. Michigan saw him in 3 different camps this summer, including their own. I'm like, man, this guy, his coach is a Michigan guy. Jermaine Gonzalez, like, hey, check out my boy over here. Like, he gives you the size profile. He clearly has the speed. I think he's going to get faster. He has ball skills. Like, I know he may not be as polished as some of the other wideouts out there, but I don't think this takes you off the board with your initial, because you got Quentin Burrell. Like, you've done really well receiver recruiting so far. If you get Chad, that doesn't put you out with the main guy you're still chasing, Bryce, and we can get into this. It doesn't put you any further out with Dakota Garant than you already are. He's already committed to Oregon, which we knew was going to happen, right? Everything is going according to plan with Dakota Garant. That's not over. And no matter who you get, you can have 25 receivers in the class. Like, your whole class could be receivers, right? And you're still taking Dakota Garant. Yeah. So that's why, to me, man, I'm all over Chad. You talk about monitoring during his senior season. If I get even an inkling that I think he's a dude, any more of a dude than I already think he is, if I'm Michigan, I'm pushing hard to try to get him to flip again. It's just hard, man. It's going to be harder now because, he'll probably be reluctant to flip twice. Some guys just don't want to do that because of the optics of it. Yeah. I'm not saying that he wouldn't, but it's just going to be hard, man.
No, I'm with you. I saw him in person. He was by far the best guy I saw on the field, and he was not the kid I was going to go see, right? And that speaks volumes to me. But is he going to be a guy that Michigan is willing to turn the heat up on? And at the same time, too, I think, his recruitment, I'm not saying in this vein, but reminds me of Ben Van Sumeren when they landed him. And I remember this because he was upset they offered so late. And I'll never forget that Jim Harbaugh and Jay Harbaugh offered him so late that they essentially apologized to him. They said, we screwed up. Like, hand up, we screwed up. We should We wanted you from the jump. He was committed to Iowa forever. And then last minute, around signing day, he flips to Michigan, stays home. And bottom line, I think a big reason why was he was an in-state kid, Sam. And I think that draw to stay home, have his family and friends come watch him every Saturday, that was a big, drawing point for him. So I'm not saying that's the same case with Chad, but it is going to take a little more work, like you said, because they're going to be behind the 8 ball, especially since this is a kid that they probably could have made a stronger push for earlier on and landed. And now it's like, you gotta, if you do decide you want them, like, oops.
Well, it reminds me of a different in-state sort of recruiting deal. So remember Michigan, they offered and they got Cole Cabana, as you recall. Cole Cabana, who was here out of Dexter transfers to Minnesota, right? Well, they were evaling, Mike Hart was evaling Cole, and he was evaling Darius Taylor. So remember Darius Taylor out of Walled Lake? And so Darius Taylor.
Good eval by Mike.
Yeah, Darius Taylor
pretty good.
Well, but they went on Cole.
Oh, I know.
Not on Darius, right? So Darius commits to Minnesota. Michigan has Cole Cabana, but then they come back later down the line and say, well, hey, we want Darius too.
Yeah.
And Darius is like, nah, man. nah. Minnesota was on me. I thought too, like, it's Minnesota. Why would you think you can flip a dude from Minnesota? But it was the timing. It was that they had waited so long to push.
Yeah.
That by the time that they did, he was obviously in his feelings about Cole, which the irony of Cole winded up in Minnesota. I guess it was Minnesota, then it was Western, right? Isn't that how it went?
Yeah, I think he's at Western.
Minnesota and then Western.
Yeah.
Anyway, the irony of that almost popping off. And Darius is, I think, a really good example of a dude that, man, I would have banked on both of those guys early. I'm like, look, let the chips fall where they may. Only thing that's held him back in Minnesota is injury. So right. I say all of that to say that don't think just because it's North Carolina, it's going to be a slam dunk. Like, the state can be, it can be weird that way. Like, it's just because Michigan comes calling to a seemingly overmatched school doesn't mean that those guys are automatically going to come running. So that's why I keep saying it's harder now with Chad than it would have been.
Too, the other thing people have to understand is, like, some of these schools, and I don't know why I'm trying to blank on the kid's name. The linebacker that went to Duke. Sam, you know what I'm talking about.
It starts with a G, doesn't it? Out of Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It was Cole's teammate.
Yep.
Sullivan's team. Anyways, Michigan wanted him. Brian G. Murray, he was recruiting him. Looked like, he had a shot at him. And next thing you know,
Bradley Gompers.
Yeah. And Duke pushed all their chips in the middle for this kid and said, that's our guy. Like, no one's gonna top this. This is like the Godfather offer. Like, this is like the one. And at that point, it's like, dang, like, what do you do, right? You can't make him the one because you have so many other ones, right? You want him, but you have to understand that other schools, and maybe the record wise and maybe prestigious and history, they might not stack up to Michigan, but that doesn't mean they don't have money too. And if they make the guy, you're going to have to be willing to bat and go up to bat. And sometimes that costs more. And that's something, that just clicked in my head, popped in my head.
Yeah. So, that brings us talking about, it's like our proverbial Dakota segment, right? Yes, he's committed to Oregon. That's not over. And I'm just telling you what they said before they committed. They said, no matter what happens, I'm talking about Dakota and his dad, no matter what happens, you're going to be watching Michigan this year. Because what I can tell you is they won't lose Dakota Garant on money. He's not lost yet. To be clear, this just tells you who you got to beat if you're Michigan. They won't lose Dakota Garant for money. Remember the last time I said that and I was like adamant? You remember like there was a number one player in not just the state, but the country. And I said, Michigan will not lose this player on the basis of money. Same logic applies here. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to flip him, because what he's looking for is, hey, what are y'all going to look like on the field? Now, I think they've done a spectacular job of convincing him that it's the likelihood of it looking different, right? Because he said last year, y'all said y'all going to throw the ball, and then look what happened during the season, right? What's a different staff? And this staff has come in and really painted a rosy picture of what the offense is going to be like. They clearly have a loaded receiver room compared to what they had before. And so if they throw it around the yard a decent amount, Oregon's in trouble, because Oregon is and I'm look, love Ross Douglas to this day, Michigan guy, done a fantastic job getting Dakota. Great job, Ross. But a money game for a dude that Michigan wants, a Michigan guy at that. What I heard, the way I heard it went down was they said to him, listen, I don't know how many receivers they were recruiting. If let's say for the sake of argument, they were recruiting 3 receivers. He said, you know what? We only going to take 2, because we're going to put way more chips. Whatever somebody comes with, we're going to come with more. It's kind of the message. We're going to reduce our recruiting board just so we can have all the resources we need to make sure that no one's going to outdo us for you, Dakota. That's a really, really compelling argument, unless it's a school that's saying, hey, you can't go high enough. Now, what Oregon has is they can, you see what they throw it around the yard, man. They throw it around the yard. So Michigan is going to come down to what they do on the field this fall. Does their offense, does it showcase the passing game, and not to the level of Oregon, but to the level that a receiver could come? Andrew Marsh, can he have 1,000 yards? And then JJ Buchanan have 800. Can they have a passing game like that where the receivers get off? That's going to be the test.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, like I said, him and his camp have been very frank and very honest with, we just want to see if Michigan can pass the ball. And they've been hearing this pitch for how many years now, and they haven't seen it. So Michigan, I don't want to, like you said, Sam, they can't be putrid, but they don't have to be Oregon. They can, I feel like, be in the middle, but it has to not be like the number 86 overall passing attack in the country. I've had, like,
Right.
And they're in the 130s, but they can't make a jump to 86. Like, I'm talking like 30. Right? Like, it needs to be a considerable jump to show, like, look at the jump we made, but look how much closer we get to maybe a top 5 passing attack. We have you now, right? And that's what you sell them on. But if you're in the 86, or it's just like, it's not what he wants. So
yeah, and I actually think I think they're better off by virtue of the new staff for this reason. It would have been harder to convince him it's going to look different.
It's like a fresh start. It's a fresh start.
It's a fresh start. So he's given these dudes more of the benefit of the doubt than he would have given the past. This is not about Ron Bellamy. I think one of the reasons why Michigan is still in strong with Dakota is because of Ron. But the passing game was saddling. I mean, it was anchoring them, man. And
yeah, so I don't think it was off the field stuff with Dakota when it came to Michigan. I think it's on the field stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's bottom line. So I think this one is very much cut and dry. Like,
well, and it's
really expected like that.
And there are levels to it, man, because as we talk about Michigan doing well in state, so you come in and you get Jakari Lipsey, but you got Bryce Kish, you got
Gideon
Gash going to
Mhm.
Texas A&M, and you're looking at the top 5 or so guys, and if you just look at the numbers, people are like, no, wait a minute, right? I tell people to pump brakes because Dakota's not over, and they've done a fantastic job to even be where they are with Dakota. But man, it also affects beyond this because his teammate DJ Bidden, so DeAndre Bidden, the last staff had done a great job with making that dude feel like he was part of the team since 8th grade. Like, he would very openly say, I love Michigan. Michigan's number 1. And you got to understand how much his coaches and trainers encourage him to say anything but that. Not because it's Michigan, but don't say you favor any school. That's just their mantra. Everybody, he wasn't listening to any of that. I love Michigan. I'm up at Michigan. He's up at Michigan, going to, throwing the ball around in the Glick. His first couple of years of high school, like, there's no question he's leaning Michigan's way. And then the coaching change happens, and that opens the door. And Michigan has since gone back in and reoffered him, and they're establishing their relationship. But in that space, LSU, man. Like, if I had to pick a leader, I say LSU's out front now. And Ohio State might be number 2. So when you talk about everything affecting everything, if they can improve things with Dakota, even if they don't get him, even if they show Dakota enough to give him pause, hopefully get him, then that helps your case the next year down the line with DeAndre Bidden, who is, you talk about a dude who's fast. So he's listed as receiver. I mean, he could be a DB. I know, I'm not saying he will be. I'm not saying Michigan's telling him that, because I know he's talking mostly wide receiver. But this is another 10-600 meter guy, like, who just pure athlete, and that's a sophomore. What is he gonna be? His last 2 years of high school. I mean, this dude could be 10-2 by the time everything is said and done. So
yeah,
a lot riding on this how things go with Dakota.
high stakes, that's for sure. But so that's whiteout. That's a blueprint of whiteout. And going forward, I guess the other spots talking about remaining needs. So I'd say probably defensive tackle. They're gonna want a defensive tackle. That one seems to be probably a senior eval. They haven't really sent offers out there. So for anyone saying, who is it? I think they're still trying to figure out who it is. But after that, we turn back to the secondary, Sam. And as much as they've hit, they've had some misses. And one of those was Marcus Jones, who was on campus, who committed to Tennessee. And he was up for Victor's Weekend. And that was the guy that Tyler Stockton, safeties coach, Brad Hawkins, assistant safeties coach, has done a really, really good job with. But, he had a family member that played at Tennessee. I think he had some family that was very much feeling the Rocky Top Tennessee vibes. And overall, it was tough for them to win out. Saying that, though, Michigan continues to recruit him. That one is not going to be over. And that's a name to get familiar with. And I think most fans are. He's, we talk about rankings. I know we have him ranked as 89. This is a guy that he's not committed to Michigan, but he is for sure, in my opinion, a top 200 player. I mean, you watch his film, and I know we have before. This guy is a heat-seeking missile. I mean, he flies around. He's got the length at 6'3", and he is kind of that missing piece of what you would want to kind of be the overall cherry on top of the secondary class. But he's not the only guy, right? So one guy, Sam, and I'll let you highlight on him more, that I also like quite a bit. This guy committed to Colorado.
Gabe Jenkins.
And that's a guy that Michigan really likes as well. So
100%.
What do you think about him, Sam?
Yeah, 100%. Gabe Jenkins, Michigan has not given up on a dude who, you look at his athletic profile, he's like Suki in that he could be a dude on either side of the ball. Is a longer dude, rangier dude. And I think there was a little surprise based on the timing of his commit. Because they thought he had I hear they thought he had a great visit, and things were looking pretty good. But Coach Prime is Coach Prime, right? There is an appeal to that. But this just tells you again who you got to beat, and I'll be interested to see how their season goes versus how Michigan's goes, and to see if they can get him back on campus for a visit, because that dude is electric. Like, he's a 4-star, and I think he's underrated, and he's not committed to Michigan. So that just tells you, it's not just about Michigan. I think Jenkins is a player, big time.
And I think the other guy to highlight, Sam, is the guy that you've talked about. That, we talk about big timers. How about Gabriel Osborne Jr.?
Yeah, someone asked about Gabe Osborne earlier. I think Gabe Osborne might be the #1 player in the country.
And we got him, let me double check. We got him ranked 24/7 at number 16th overall, number 3 corner, and the #1 player in the state of Oklahoma. 6'2", 180 pounds, got over 20 offers. Michigan was in the mix, but it seemed like at the time this was Oklahoma's to lose than it was.
Well, I actually thought he was Alabama's to lose, because
Ohio State also was in the mix. So,
yeah. In Ohio State. Yeah, I was worried about Ohio State. It's a great point. I was worried about Ohio State, but I thought he was leaning Alabama. The Oklahoma coach just showed up to his school visit, and he was wearing Alabama gear. And so I'm like, that's not a good sign if you're Oklahoma, right? I mean, you talk about giving you the wrong vibe. Like, can you imagine showing up to see a kid and he's wearing Ohio State stuff and he knows you're coming?
I mean, but that's their Dakota Garan. Like, that's the #1 player in their state. Then you can't lose him. You know what I mean?
And so that was the approach. I heard that obviously they're taking care of him, but they're like, everybody hey, mama, daddy, girlfriend, who else who else is in the mix? Everybody is like, let's go to Oklahoma, right? So that's how. So I say all of that to say, I think this one, as great a job as Gennaro Guilford did there as well, because I think Michigan was very much in that mix. I think if you were to poll them or their class, because we were talking to a lot of class members, they thought they were in way better shape than maybe the recruiting sites, ours included, had them, where it was Oklahoma, it was Ohio State, it was Alabama. Michigan was in there, but more of an afterthought. JG has a great, he's in super tight with the coaching staff at Mustang High School. So, I mean, Michigan was positioned pretty well if they didn't have to get over what wound up being this is like you said, we aren't going to lose you. Whatever we got to do and whoever we got to do it for to not lose you, that's what we're going to do. I don't think that's going to be tough. I mean, I feel Oklahoma is going to do him the way that Michigan is going to do Dakota.
And it makes sense. Why wouldn't you? He's the top player in the state, And I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm not super familiar with all the guys and all the top players that have come through the state of Oklahoma, but that never seems to be the deepest state in terms of football. So when you get one of these generational talents from your state, you need to do everything to lock him down, by all means. And that's what I think.
Lamar would have been out of job as soon as he got it. If you lose that,
I forgot he's there.
Hey, he got hired, and it was like, okay, now objective number 1, better not lose Gabe Osborne, because this would be real quick. This would be real quick, man. So, hey, Lamar was able to get it done. He was able to get it done. I think it's going to be tough to undo that one. I feel, put it this way, I feel a lot better about the prospects with Gabe Jenkins than I do Gabe Osborne. And there's work to do with Gabe Jenkins. So
correct.
Let's see how things go. See how things go. But, you know, want to point your attention again to this weekend. Lincoln McGayle going to be announcing his decision coming up. Scheduled time is 7 o'clock Eastern, but you really need to start being on watch around 6 o'clock Eastern because he's doing it at a festival, and timing could fluctuate. So we feel really good about Michigan standing with him. We feel like he's much better than his ranking, not just a little better than his ranking, much better. Like this is a real dude, and would be a big time land if the Wolverines can get him. And of course, we are still, you know, from Suki to Blake Jenkins. We got to bring you the Blake Jenkins interview. We got to bring you all of that Dusty threw off. I'm still, if you can't tell, I'm still a little bitter, but it's still my guy, even though he's gone. Still my guy, and I think Mike Boynton has done a splendid job of retaining the roster. So we'll see if Mike is able to carry it on. But to get back to what I was talking about, all of those studio interviews the guys dropped by for, we're still going to publish those for you here coming up. And we'll have much more coming over on the MichiganInsider.com. If you aren't a member, join the family. It's where it all goes down. We got a lot of exciting things in store for the season. That this offseason has been about building up resources and features and getting ready for what we expect to be a really, really good year, both on the field and on the site. So if you aren't a member, join up over on the MichiganInsider.com. Until then, we'll see you next time here on the Michigan Insider here on TOI. You got me caught almost on the radio.
Got him.
Next time on the Michigan Insider, or the Michigan Recruiting Insider.